Roughly 1.5 million people live in this region, with up to 400,000 affected by drought and hunger. There are no roads in Gamagofa and no airstrips on which to land a plane. So we had to search out a clear piece of desert as close to a settlement as possible. After we landed and stepped out into the scorching heat, we made our way to some 2,000 people waiting under a thorn tree, waiting quietly, almost too quietly. Their bodies, their faces, even their measured steps told one story: prolonged hunger, near starvation, and they kept coming. To these nomadic Bume tribes people, our plane had looked like a government relief flight. They were gathering for one reason. They were desperate for food.
For World Vision, the 1980s were really about large-scale famines and natural disasters, which the organization, with all of its years of experience and so many staff on the ground, could really respond to.
There's no butter around this area. There is no milk or dried skim milk around this area. Every morning we wake up, we don't eat any breakfast, and we walk with empty stomach up to this relief center, and we don't get anything. And when we saw the plane coming this morning, we thought that there were some relief items. Unfortunately, there was nothing.
I tried to tell Amila that we would be sending food, but she was skeptical. She'd heard empty promises before. And I promise in the name of God that as quickly as we can get a plane here with food, there will be food here. I have to tell you, it was one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had. But I'd made a promise, and I'd made it in the name of God. Tomorrow came, and so did the sight of that antiquated DC-3. We were able to keep a solemn promise. Only one thing remained. I was waiting to hear from Amila. I saw her standing over to the side of the crowd, then coming to get a portion of maize for her family. Later, she made a special point to thank me in the traditional Bume fashion.
Stan Mooneyham left World Vision in 1982, and Ted Engstrom, who had always been such a stabilizing force, such a steadfast servant at World Vision since the 1960s, at that time stepped into being president of World Vision US until Bob Seipel was hired in 1987. World Vision was starting to respond in a lot of those places, and in Ethiopia, for instance, we were providing food and other relief in the northern areas that were suffering the most from the worsening famine.
We started with feeding people because that was a time when people were dying every single day, you know, little children, mothers, young adults, and a lot of people were dying, and people couldn't be able to move around, and they were just totally helpless in such a desperate situation.
My first trip to Ansokia Valley was in May of '85, the first time that I was in Africa. And up to that point, it had been a feeding center, and in the worst days, every morning when the staff woke up, they would go out and find the number of people that had died. and help those families grieve and help them bury the bodies. There were a lot of people dying every day.
And at the time, the Ethiopian government was covering that up, so journalists were not allowed. But relief workers were, and that's how World Vision was able to bring in BBC journalists.
So we set up a meeting in the World Vision office there in Nairobi, and we showed them this video that we had taken in Farsuma and all of these other places. I remember Mike Wooldridge saying, "This is the proof of what we have in the media had been suspecting all along." So that set a chain of events in motion.
And the end of October in 1984, Tom Brokaw did a 2-night series on the famine in Ethiopia. It was actually shot by a BBC crew, but NBC aired it here. And they talked about a famine, and they showed just the unbelievable poverty and hunger and starvation in Ethiopia.
And that was it. That was it. The story had broken. And I mean, the phones lit up. All of the agencies at the time were just inundated with phone calls because the footage was so powerful.
And it really caught the attention of the country in the way I had never seen ever before.
The result was a huge outpouring of compassion all around the world.
And the big first gigantic breakthrough was when they produced We Are the World, which was right after, I believe, the American Music Awards. Quincy Jones asked a number of the leading stars at the time, music stars, to get together after that event and overnight record this We Are the World song that he and Michael Jackson, I believe, had put together.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We can't go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family, and the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world, we are the children, we are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice we're making.
And somebody had brought a copy of the We Are the World video that they did, you know, with Michael Jackson and all of the artists, and we plugged it into the thing, and we all stood around the TV, and I remember, you know, we all sort of swayed back and forth and saying "We Are the World," you know, and right outside was Ethiopia.
Free, as God has shown us. And so we all must lend a helping hand. We are the world. We are.
The public response was immediate and huge. And we went from about a $3 million program in Ethiopia to about $60 million. And lots of lives were saved.
And that's the time we first arrived and started feeding people because we were called to save the life of the people.
So I remember one day we got a call from our UK office, World Vision UK, and they told us that we were going to be getting a visitor, and that his visit was to be kept very secret, very quiet, no press, no public relations. And he was the lead singer of a group called U2. His name was Bono. And my boss at the time, Pat Banks, said, "Okay, I want you to, you know, take care of this guy. We need to get him a travel permit. We need to get him, you know, a visa. We need to get him up to." And the interesting thing about it was, because we had gotten these kinds of requests all the time, but the interesting thing about this request was He wanted to come, he was coming with his wife, Allie, and they wanted to work for a month in one of our feeding centers, one of our camps.
In 1984, the famine was there. That was the first time we moved in 1984. But now it is incredible to see from Dust Bowl to the Valley of Blossom, the Valley of reach of, food.
World Vision started a reforestation program. There was also a valley where there was a river, I believe it's called the Burkina River, and every rainy season it would flood and cut off the valley from civilization. They couldn't get in or out of the valley, so there was another project that was put in place to build this bridge across the river. Actually, when people ask me what was the most interesting thing you shot, I think it was the building of the bridge. It was absolutely, I believe, what was going on when the pyramids were built. There was not one piece of modern technology anywhere. Absolutely incredible.
And that's the place where we can say World Vision have met one of our major objectives, reaching the unreached.